The letters from Chad Daybell. Now, I started getting emails from you all last week saying, "Have you seen this?" There's an X account and there's a website that has letters purportedly from Chad Daybell. I went to them, I read the letters, and I wasn't sure what to think because, um, one, these could have been fake, someone trying to pretend to be Chad Daybell, or two, they could be very real. And he really is sending messages through these letters and getting them out publicly. I was so busy I didn't really have time to follow up. I did send the link to a couple of extended family members who didn't was they weren't able to confirm to me if it was real or not. The letters were really his, but a couple of days ago, actually just yesterday, and this is what it said. Letters to friends and family posted on behalf of Chad Daybell, aiming for every Monday and Thursday. All opinions are his, DMs are closed, he receives no financial compensation. Okay, so there's an X account and there's a website. Now, it was confirmed that these are real through the U.S. Sun publication. Emma Murray, Chad's daughter, wrote to the Sun saying, "My dad, my father, Chad Daybell, was convicted by the state of Idaho to die. I started a page on X to share his letters and thought you might be interested." She declined to comment further. So, Emma, who testified on behalf of her father in the trial, wrote a letter to the Sun saying, an email saying, "Here is the website," and confirmed that it was him. Like, these are his letters. Now, I, in full transparency, have read through a few of these, but not all of them. And I don't know if I'm going to read through all of them tonight, but and here's the thing: as a journalist, you try to balance informing the public. It is newsworthy that a person on death row is sending out letters to the public. That is newsworthy. But does it cross the line of sensationalism, of going too far by putting out his every single word? Like Lori Vallow, putting out her every single word. They've both been convicted of murder, multiple counts. That's where you have to balance it. And I think it would be irresponsible if I came on every day and said, "Here's the latest letter from Chad." I'm not going to do that. This will probably be the only time I talk about these letters. Here is letter number 1. It says, "Hello, my friends. This is Chad Daybell writing to you from my cell in Idaho's maximum security institution. This is the first of several letters I will send. I want to thank everyone who has sent me cards and letters while I have been incarcerated. Your kind words of support really helped me. I cherished each one." Interesting to me, pausing here. This is not his words about that he's getting letters of support. "I arrived here at the prison in June of 2024, and I suppose you could say I've settled in. As for death row itself, I won't be sharing details about my daily schedule or information about my fellow inmates. As the newest arrival on death row, it isn't my place to talk about such things. It really is a different world in here, but I'm surviving and I spend a lot of time working on my upcoming appeals. I express my gratitude to each of you who have been a part of my life. While I was in the Fremont County Jail, I spent thousands of hours in an isolation cell. I wasn't allowed to have a clock, and it often felt like time stood still. During those challenging days, I would reflect on my life, working forward from childhood to more recent years. As memories came to me, I would write down the names of the people who had been positive influences in my life. I felt strengthened as I remembered my extended family members, neighbors, coworkers, school classmates, business associates, church members, and friends I have been privileged to know. You have all enriched my life in so many ways. I am using this method to share my story because I want you to receive it uncensored and unfiltered directly from me. I am aware of how I have been portrayed in the media. Frankly, those portrayals of me are unrecognizable. I am not the man the media has created. I am not a cult member who should be feared. I am not a conspirator or a killer. I never have been. I am a father, a grandfather, a husband, a son, a brother, and a friend with a firm faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have recently been able to have a few in-person visits with several of my family members, and those have been wonderful. I will always be grateful for the unconditional love and support these family members have given me. When people find out my relatives have visited me, they usually ask, how has he changed? My relatives give the same response. He hasn't changed. He's the same Chad we always knew. People are surprised by the answer after hearing a different story for so long. I am still the quiet, gentle person you all know. I have always been a peacemaker, even now in prison. I have never caused anyone's death and never conspired to commit such acts against anyone. I share your sadness, pain, and grief over the deaths of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. I don't have all the answers even now, but I'm grateful a more complete story will be shared during my appeals process. During my court trial, I followed my attorney's advice to sit quietly, not smile, and not show any emotion as evidence was presented. I know that is standard protocol for defendants in the courtroom, but I realize now that it made me appear to be cold and uncaring, which is the opposite of who I am. I assure you my heart was breaking many times throughout the trial, and there were moments I couldn't hold back the tears, especially as I saw and heard family members suffering the same feelings of anguish that I was experiencing. A key purpose of these letters is to share with you what I had hoped would have been explained in court. I will strive to make each letter informative and worth your time. I fully realize many people will never change their negative opinion of me. In this age of social media, podcasts, and the merging of the mainstream media with law enforcement, I don't know what that means. Very few defendants are portrayed in a positive way. All I can hope for is that these letters can begin to generate feelings of healing, reconciliation, and understanding. Thanks again, my friends, for the many ways you have helped and inspired me throughout my life. All right. I don't know how healing these letters are going to be, or reconciling, or understanding they'll be, but it's interesting that he still is standing firm in his beliefs, and apparently at least one of his children is too, Emma. From what I've heard, more are as well. Now, he goes on to write about, underneath that letter, it says bookshelf. And he goes on to talking about his time in junior high and about his book. Okay, so it appears, as again, I haven't dove into this site until now with you live right here. It appears he's teasing and promoting his book. Okay, I guess he's recommending the book Life Everlasting. He read it when he was a teenager, and it examines eyewitness accounts of more than 200 people who have ventured into the spirit world and returned to tell their experiences. So that's what he's reading or wants to read. And then he talks about music. He loves all types of music. Most of his memories are tied to specific songs. When he was in jail in Fremont, he rarely heard music. It was a hardship. A few months before my trial began, the jail staff gave him a portable radio where I was allowed to listen to the jail's ball court. The court was a concrete rectangle with 20 feet high that usually blocked the sun, but it was nice to breathe some. Oh, he was allowed to listen when he was in the ball court. Okay. So he listened to a country station, oldie station, and K-Love. I'm familiar with K-Love. K-Love came in the best. It was about Jesus. There was some group, a song called I'm So Blessed, official audio, etc. All right, so there you go. There's letter number 1. Sounds like he's going to have a theme that runs through these. Now, are you ready for letter number 2? I'm probably losing a lot of you at the moment. I don't know, as I said, how much I'll go into these. This one may be a little harder to read, but here we go. Letter number 2. This letter is devoted to Tammy. I loved her, and I still do. She was my life partner and the mother of our 5 amazing children. We built a wonderful family together. We were married for nearly 30 years, and I always sought to keep her safe and protected. That's not what the evidence showed, but she was the anchor of my life. I never considered harming her. Tammy has increasingly severe health issues in the final months of her life, but very few people knew about them. Pause. Her family in Utah, her siblings and mother and father didn't know about these health issues. They saw her 2 weeks before she died. She didn't complain about any health issues. Pausing there, I'm going to try to not give commentary. I'm just going to try to read the letters. She was an intensely private person who rarely shared personal details with others, much less that her health was suffering. She would put on a brave smile in public and asked as if nothing was bothering her. But even those of us who knew her about her health struggles never expected her to pass away so suddenly, and her death has somewhat overshadowed the remarkable woman she was. I want you to get to know the living, vibrant, beautiful Tammy who blessed so many people with her talents and unique traits. That part is true. She was strong yet so delicate. We were united in our parenting efforts, our religious beliefs, and in publishing a company we operated together for 15 years. She radiated goodness and charisma, generated a positive impact on everyone around her. She was kind and loving, but especially to children and animals. She was always on the lookout for the underdog who might need a boost in life. Tammy and I got married in our youth. I was 21, she was 19, and over the years, we essentially became one. We didn't officially meet until I returned home from a 2-year LDS church mission to northern New Jersey. When I arrived back in my hometown in Springville, Utah in July 1989, and a few days later, I saw my brother's 1988 high school yearbook on the shelf. I flipped it open and saw a student spotlight about a girl named Tammy Douglas. As I looked at her face, I felt a jolt of electricity pass through me. This beautiful girl with a dazzling smile had my attention. I realized she would have been a sophomore when I was a senior, but I couldn't remember her. I wondered how I could find out more about her. I asked my brother if he knew her, and he said she was working that summer for Springville City. I was in luck. He then goes on to talk about their first date. I'm not going to read all this stuff. She loved music, Oingo Boingo, Depeche Mode. They were married in the LDS Temple in Manti, Utah in March of 1990, 7 months after they met. They went to concerts throughout their marriage. They'd hold family dance parties in their living room. Even now, the children tell me they'll often get in the car and certain obscure but meaningful songs will be on the radio, and it feels like Tammy is saying she is nearby. Maybe those songs on the radio are just a coincidence, but either way, it reminds our children of their wonderful mother and the fun we had as a family. I'm grateful for Tammy's complete faith and trust in God. In early 2004, I felt we should start our own book publishing company. I knew it would be a challenge, but I sensed it would be very successful. Very successful, I guess. Again, I'll hold back my commentary. I told Tammy my feelings, and although she was apprehensive about the idea, she agreed to pray about it. In response, she said she received the strongest spiritual confirmation of her life and that we should move forward with it. We formed Spring Creek Book Company, went on to sell books. On his bookshelf, he goes on to talk about a book called A Lion and a Lamb, and that it was turned into the film The Fighting Preacher. And anyway, musical notes. So he doesn't play any instruments. He took piano lessons. And Keen. He talks about the British band Keen. Okay, there's letter number 2. As I said, I'm not going to read all these. This letter is about his move to Idaho. And let me tell you that let me just read this to you. I want to just bring this to you. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments as I read these. Letter number 3. My previous letter concluded with Tammy and I moving with our children from Utah to Idaho in 2015. I will continue from that point. We bought a home north of Rexburg in an area known as Salem. Our children were enrolled at either BYU Idaho or Sugar Salem High School, and they made some wonderful friends. Tammy also flourished in our new surroundings. She loved the rural lifestyle with plenty of property to create her own little farm. She always had a soft spot in her heart for animals, but in Springville, we'd had a small yard that limited the types of pets we could have. However, soon after we arrived in Idaho, Tammy began to assemble an ever-growing family of pets, including chicken, pigeons, cats, a rabbit, and of course, Tammy's favorite pet, Indian runner ducks. She named them all and enjoyed caring for them. She also created several garden areas around the property she would carefully maintain. After moving to Idaho, Tammy and I stayed busy running our publishing company. I was the president and editor-in-chief, while she was the vice president and chief financial officer. I was also making good money writing a weekly online column along with receiving royalties of her published books. We felt blessed, so Tammy didn't need to work beyond her company duties, but several years earlier in Springville, she had taken a part-time position as the computer lab teacher at her children's elementary school. Let me tell you that contradicts the testimony that they needed the benefits. They didn't have health insurance. Tammy took the job at the school and was supporting the family based on testimony. Chad Daybell, I don't remember what the amount was, $30,000 a year or something that he made off his books. And Tammy was making more. That's what came out at the trial. That was the evidence. I don't know what he means by good money. When we prepared to move to Idaho, Tammy looked for a similar position. She was hired as an. By the way, I should back up. Maybe they were making good money in Utah. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. She was later hired as a librarian at Central Elementary in Sugar City, which was much closer to our home. She also took the task of creating a computer lab at the school modeled after the one she held in Springville. I would visit Tammy at the elementary school every couple of nights, and I helped her out during open house events such as back to school night. It was fun to be greeted by the students as Mrs. Daybell's husband. Tammy has always strived to be physically fit, and in Idaho, she turned part of our front room into her workout area. She enjoyed doing yoga. She liked to play several exercise video games such as Just Dance, Walk It Out, and Exerbeat. It wasn't until the final year of her life that she started having noticeable physical setbacks. Again, that contradicts evidence at the trial. She caught a cold during the holidays and she battled chest congestion and a deep cough throughout early 2019. She also was experiencing menopause symptoms with regular hot flashes. She was now 48, but she said she felt she had aged 10 years in just a few months. Her exercise routine faded away and she became content to just sit on the couch, watch TV, and work on her laptop. Again, I'll keep reading. My children and I encouraged Tammy to visit her doctor for a full health exam, but she resisted going. She had grown up with a firm belief in using holistic medicine and natural healing remedies to regain her health. I had seen these methods produce many positive effects over the years, with Tammy having rapid recoveries, but this time seemed different, as if something had shifted within her body. I regret not being more insistent in having her get a physical exam because there were 4 major reasons for concern, and they all got worse as 2019 progressed. First, there were Tammy's lengthy colds and prolonged coughing fits. Second were her lethargy and overall lack of energy. This wasn't the same woman who could work in the garden and care for her animals all evening without stopping. She began using the phrase, quote, need to sit down almost daily after her sustained physical activity. The third reason for concern were her swollen joints and bloating in her abdomen. Tammy initially tried to brush off these symptoms as temporary water retention, but they never went away. One day, she came up to me and partially lifted her shirt. She grabbed hold of her belly and said, look at this. I can almost hear my guts sloshing around. I'm going to pause here. Why didn't he testify to this at the trial? If this is true. Next. Around the same time, Tammy and my son attended a health wellness fair. They were examined by a nurse who was bothered by how swollen Tammy's legs were and that she had developed varicose veins. The nurse urged her to see a doctor, but Tammy refused. She finally admitted that her condition might be more serious when she called me into her bedroom one afternoon. I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, wiping away tears from her eyes. It was late August 2019, and the new school year was about to begin. As she sat on the bed, she had a pair of pants halfway up her legs. She said, these pants fit me just fine at the end of the school year. Now I can't get them over my hips. She stood up and demonstrated to me in full frustration. None of her other school pants fit either. We went to the store the next day to buy replacements, and she ended up having to go up 2 pant sizes. She was very discouraged about it and eventually resorted to wearing full-length skirts most of the time to school. The fourth cause of concern was a series of fainting spells. Tammy felt her equilibrium was being affected as well as her stamina. It wasn't unusual for her to find her in the kitchen with both hands on the counter with her head down. She would say, I'm okay, I'm just a little dizzy. Tammy's first major fainting incident happened in April 2019. She had finished putting the animals away for the night. She crossed the back driveway. She blacked out and crashed forward onto the asphalt, injuring her wrist. She came into the house and explained what happened, saying her wrist might be broken. I urged her to go to the emergency room, but she refused. She took an herbal remedy instead, and the pain went away in a few days. That summer, we went to the temple. She collapsed. She was very embarrassed. In September, she essentially repeated her fall in the back driveway. She fell in the exact spot, almost the exact spot. This time, she got a wrist brace. She said, I'll just sit here if I have to. Okay. Again, I spoke with her family. Would you not tell your family this if this was happening? Like, I don't talk with my family all the time. I maybe call my parents once a week, my siblings every couple weeks or months. But if I fell in the driveway 2 or 3 times, I'd probably tell my parents. Side note, that's just me. Here we go. He talks about, okay. She began to complain she was having out of body experiences. She described how her spirit would hover above her body for a few seconds at a time. In early October, one of those incidents happened while I was in the living room and she was in the kitchen. I suddenly heard a loud crash and I rushed into the kitchen to find Tammy had actually fainted into the open fridge. She had landed hard against one of the shelves and was slumped down in the bottom half. I helped her stand up and told her I was very worried about her. She just waved her hand and asked me to help her lay down on the couch. The day before she passed away, she came home completely worn out from setting up the displays for the school's upcoming book fair. That evening, she told family members she wasn't feeling well and later had a bad coughing fit before throwing up. She went to sleep, which, if you remember testimony, she still had food in her stomach. We went to sleep, and when I woke up the next morning, she had passed away. I will describe that terrible morning and subsequent events in the future letter. But as word of her death spread, everyone was devastated because she had such a powerful, wonderful influence on so many people. We all feel that loss every day. I miss her and love her. Tammy was a true angel on earth, and I know she is still watching over our family. My children and I have felt her presence many times since her death. We said she is particularly interested in her precious grandchildren. We believe families can be together forever in heaven. And although as she has moved on ahead of us, we know we will be reunited with her someday. His book is Chasing Paradise. His musical notes are Tim McGraw, I guess, Where the Green Grass Grows.